The Born to Win podcast highlights individuals excelling at high levels in their purpose and calling. This podcast is for anyone looking to get ahead in life and willing to take action and reach their full potential. Using Champ's male mentoring model of the 3 E's, education, empowerment, and exposure, it means you too are born to win.
I'm born to win. Live. The Champs from Chicago be screaming all that. You are now tuned in to the Born to Win podcast. Champion.
All right, welcome to another Born to Win podcast. I hope everybody's doing great out there. Listen, everybody, we have a special guest. And this time, this is a young man under the age of 21. Let me say that one more time. I said this time, we have a young man under the age of 21. And I don't care what the media is portraying about our black and brown boys. In America, there are some young men that are roaring like lions in the jungle, letting the world notice that their existence is valuable, is meaningful, and their presence will shock the world. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce this young man, Mr. Mcdonald. That's right, Mr. Mcdonald. He's a self-employed licensed insurance producer who represents 3, watch this, major insurance companies, y'all, as well as over a dozen smaller private companies that provides financial solutions to families across Texas. Mr. Jamil was raised in the Cabrini Green housing projects. Those of you who know about the housing projects know it's on the near north side. And he relocated to Texas years later to live with close relatives. He spends his time with real estate investing. That's very important, y'all. Get some real estate on the land. And that's what this brother's doing. E-commerce and inspiring individuals, watch this, to become financially independent. That means that they're not relying on others to source their lifestyle. Mr. Mcdonald is an influential figure in his community, where he aspires to be a financial advocate, helping other youth to discover, understand, and apply their deepest passions within society. So I'm super excited to introduce Mr. Mcdonald to the Born to Win podcast. How you doing, brother?
Hey, how's it going? Nice
It's going great, man. It's going great. Thanks for joining. And we just want to get right in and let everybody know, all right, a little bit about yourself, because everyone has a unique story. And I think yours is phenomenal because you had the opportunity to escape some of the harshest environments in terms of what we know as the projects. Yeah. So tell our viewing audience who you are and a little bit about yourself.
Well, everybody, my name is Jamil Mcdonald. I'm 19 years old. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. As Mr. Vondale stated, from Cabrini Green, near the north side. As most of you know, is a very different environment. And growing up there was a different experience, and it really rooted me into who I was, who the city was, the culture in Chicago, and just really how to separate yourself from the crowd and get your chance to be a different figure. And being in that environment kind of introduced me to different things that I would relate to either family, and then things that affected me personally that allowed me to open up and kind of drift away to begin to even get on that path to becoming successful and making it out, or bringing the lifestyle into other people's lives as well. And from that sense, ever since I was little, I would, hang around 862 with my grandma and cousins or whatever. And we would chill there on the patio, just looking at the gates, looking over the row houses, watching the sunset, kind of, thinking of different things. Or I would go to my dad's house he stayed in the row house with my mom. And that's why I stayed mainly. And I would, travel back and forth between there. And just kind of being surrounded, by those people in that environment, that family. And, in some sense, without all the violence, it really is, that core feeling that brought all of us together,
Hey, man, what an introduction, y'all. Listen, man, if nobody else say, I'm proud of you, brother. You know, it's really hard
I
to,
appreciate that, man. Really,
yeah,
it's been a long, hard road, but a longer road ahead.
yeah, yeah. And then the valuable part is that you're just getting started. And
Yeah,
the,
it's true.
and the powerful thing is, as you pave your way and go along your journey, what you're doing is you're setting a template for others to follow.
Yeah,
And that's the most
I want
powerful
others.
thing. Hmm.
I want others to see that it's not just following that path. It's also it's studying the path and then learning how you could implement those things into whatever path you want to create for yourself. That's the inspiration aspect of it all.
So you grew up, born in the Chicago area, moved out to
Yes.
Texas, and
Yeah.
you kind of described that journey. So what
Mhm.
was the journey once you got to Texas to kind of led you
Oh,
into insurance and the pathway around financial literacy and coaching and all of those types of things?
that's a good journey. I already described that to you. So my transition from Chicago into Texas started when I was around 13, just going into 14. So moving from Chicago to Texas was a completely different change. And I really the opportunity from that started from my aunt when she moved us out there from Chicago, and we stayed with her when we were in Texas. And that transition from the city environment into the country environment was kind of weird for me. I'm not seeing the concrete. I'm not seeing the buildings. I'm not hearing the sirens. I'm not going to sleep to the gunshots anymore. It was a different exposure, and to be surrounded by that residential environment and to see different things, and it's like, wow, this stuff really exists out here. Back at home, when I was little, I see it on the TVs and stuff like that, but it just wasn't that exposure that was necessary for me to be able to start to think in different ways. So moving from there, starting at 13, I actually remember this. It was the summer. I want to say maybe 2014, 2015, and I was sitting down with my dad and I was talking to him. And I was just getting in between that age, and I'm about to jump from about 15, 16 years old, and we just chopping it up, sitting down in his office or whatever. And I was telling him, I was like, Dad, when I get back to Texas, I plan on getting a job. I'm about to turn 16. I'm getting into it, with moms all the time. She arguing, fussing with me, cursing at me or whatever. And I'm just
Hmm.
like, I was told, if you don't like a situation, you gotta do something to change it yourself. Ain't nobody gonna come around and just change it for you. So I wanted a job. I wanted something of my own, something that resembled freedom in my sense at that age. So when I got back to Texas, that's exactly what I did. So I got back home. I didn't have a car or anything. I didn't have a bike. So I walked. I left home. I walked all around. I walked across the street, to different retail stores. I walked to the mall. I walked past the school. Anywhere I could. I just filling out applications, anything in that nature. And I landed my first job. Like a week after getting to Texas. So just as I told my dad, sitting down, I was like, hey, when I get back to Texas, I'm gonna get a job, and that's exactly what I did. I went back to Texas, and I got a job in a week. So, and that was a really starting point of realizing that freedom and understanding, like, hey, this is life now. This is like this is here. This is what you wanted, and once it's there, you got to take it, and you can't do nothing else about it but run with it. Because looking back, you're not gonna get to those the aspirations and the dreams that you assumed for yourself while you was, whether back in the city or back during those times where it was this and that with family. And it's that new starting point. So sitting down to this day, I'm still in touch with that man, the same manager that hired me that day, my first hiring man. I can call him right now on my phone if I wanted to. And that was real important about keeping those relationships, whether it be personal or professional. Always never burning those bridges, because you never know when somebody will be of your likeness, your aid in the future. And he gave me that starting point, so I started in retail there, at a small shoe store. It was Journey's Kids. Started there as a sales lead, and then after turning 16, I turned 17, and at 17 years old, I became a co-manager. Now,
Mm.
in the company, co-managers were only allowed at 18 years old. But my district manager, recognized my work, recognized how I held the team together and how my leadership stood out, amongst the other leaders that she had in her district. And she gave me the position anyway. So I was, 17 years old,
Wow.
still in high school, co-manager at a shoe store. And, I'm just really, getting on that grind. And, people, they would be, surprised, they'd be like, what do you do? In high school, I wasn't the outright kid. I was kind of a introvert in high school. Like I knew about everybody, but nobody, knew about me. And it kind of just, kind of shocked people. But, once they, sat down and talked to me and got to know me, it was a different experience. And, to this day, you asked me earlier, did I have like any social media handles? I was like, nah, I don't. And that comes as a shock to most people because, I'm 19 and to say I never had any social media at all. I never had an Instagram, a Snapchat, none of that. I didn't see the appeal to it because I was more of a person that liked personal interactions. I like, sitting down, talking with people. If somebody wanted to chill, kick it with me, they come over my house, we'll link up somewhere and, kick it there. But it's that personal interaction that I like. And I couldn't get that, through social media. So I was never attracted to it. But I got plans for it in the future for business wise and stuff like that.
You're a smart man. You're a smart man. And
yeah.
let me jump in and say something. We can keep the conversation going.
Come on.
I want to go back to the escaping the reality of what people know are the stereotypical narratives of Chicago: gangs, guns, violence. Yeah. When people tend to think of Chicago, they always go right there. And obviously, you had parents to care enough about you to move you out of a situation. Did you understand what they were doing at the time? And then how did you overcome those obstacles earlier on not to get sucked into that narrative?
Honestly, as a kid, I didn't know what they were doing at the time because I didn't know what I know now. So I didn't appreciate the transition as much as I do now because, as a kid, when you transfer, to different environments, it's a new exposure to you, but you don't really understand the essence of it until you, get to those older ages where you start to see and comprehend, the true meanings of life and how those can affect you. So when I got into those environments, I was faced a lot with those, stereotypes and stuff because, I'm a kid coming from Chicago, I was always surrounded in those environments with gunshots and the violence and just being engulfed in that, captivating sense of, turmoil in the city. Is just, we trapped in this, perilous concrete jungle and we can't get out. And it's just bringing that energy and that aggressiveness and that, hunger into the suburbs of Texas is like, it was something that, kind of started a lot of conflict. I was in trouble in school. I was always into it with teachers, my parents and stuff. It was just, I just couldn't get, adjusted as well. And then that created a lot of, mistakes, and from mistakes that led to failures. And it's like learning that and going through that process, it was hard because, you had to bump your head a lot and just wake up to certain things and learn how to grow up at an early age with all the responsibilities.
No, that's good. So for me, it's kind of listening to you talk, and you mentioned that you don't have social media, whereas I would say 99.9%.
Yeah.
Even if people not really engaging with it, it's kind of the way of communication. And I noticed you said, although you may have been viewed as kind of like introverted, you still like the personal connection. You still like to talk with people. And I'm curious now. I'm kind of going off what we said, but I'm kind of curious in terms of how does that bode well for you in insurance, and in e-commerce, and really building that repertoire and communicating with people. Has that worked out for you in a sense better?
Yes. Now that I'm glad you brought that up because going through that process of not being exposed, to that, social media environment, it taught me how to actually, communicate with people professionally and effectively get ideas across and, come together as a collective to, execute ideas, plans, or, anything that may be of that nature. And just building on those communication skills outside of social media, it forced me to be in environments that I wasn't comfortable with. It forced me to to speak in front of people. It forced me to interact with a group and, teamwork. It forced me to be in conflicting situations up front, face to face with people where you didn't have time to go home and chill out and, or put your phone down. You had to handle it right then and there. And it put me in places of leadership, where I had to communicate with people in order to get things done, effectively. And it's just, it molded me and built those pieces up and up until I was able to grasp, an understanding of how to navigate professionally, how to talk, fluently with, people in those environments, and just navigate communicating with, e-commerce, whether it's with, clients or, wholesale customers or, product merchandisers. It's just it's a bigger environment than what you think it is when you actually get out in the world and get to, communicate with people and learn these things.
Shout out to individuals like yourself who buck against the stereotypical norm, right, on how we navigate society. I think that's really important, and already it's showing that you leaps and bounds ahead of your peers, really, because I believe social media should be used as a tool, as a vehicle.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So let me kind of push the conversation forward in this regard. A lot of young people kind of feel like I'm stuck. I'm in the mode. Mm-hmm. This is the block I grew up on. This is the block I'm gonna die on. So for you, how do you see and how do you define hope? What can you say to a young man who's down the street in the old block? Like, there's hope. How do you talk to that individual?
I talk to him as, and I come across this a lot, even when I go back to visit, over the summer in Chicago, or when I'm down here in Texas, I come across these individuals, of that nature, and I see it in them. I can look into their eyes, and I see that if there's any hope at all, it's slightly, taken away in a minuscule amount. Excuse me, and when you put it in that sense, I want people to think about hope as an aspirational aspect, and it's more of a sense of like affirmations or belief, and that belief stems from anything being possible. And when you know that anything is possible and everything comes from thought, whether things that man has created himself as came from thought. Man thought of cars, so cars were invented. Man thought to fly, so we got airplanes now. Man thought of telecommunications and talking to granny across on the East Coast. So when you think of stuff in your mind, it comes out into fruition when you actually believe in it and put forth the effort to make sure that that comes true. So for that person that's stuck or think that there's no way out or then all the answers that you need are really inside of you. It's you have the answers to all of your problems when you really break things down and assess, what's this and what's that and what's really causing these conflicts and issues and how you work about it. And just really locking in and believing in yourself and believing in that next step forward and getting to that exposure and seeing, what else is there for you really helps you get over that stump in the road,
I want to go on record real quick and say, for those of you who are watching or listening across this nation, I want you to listen to this brother. Brother McDonald is telling you, you must believe in yourself. The answers are already on the inside of you. All right. And so don't get caught up in, well, this is the way that my father did it. This is the way my grandfather did it. So this is the way that I have to do it. I want you guys to expand your mindset, expand your horizons. There are opportunities, and with the power, and this is why I say social media should be used as a tool, as a vehicle. We see what people post on social media all day, right? And what you navigate towards is what you're going to start to meditate on and think about. And what Brother McDonald is saying is there is hope. There is hope. Isn't that right?
All across. It's in you. It's in everybody. It's in people around you. It's like a perpetual energy just going around the world.
I love it. Perpetual energy going all around the world. Now, I do want to kind of talk about, just like for you, some of your memories and coming up. What kind of like help you become successful? Any failures you want to talk about or share with our viewing audience or listening audience on how you were able to use those perceived failures to turn into success?
Yes, definitely. One of my failures that I would say actually started in my career, my early on my retail career, and it was something that of course that it was a decision that was made on my part. Wasn't a good decision, but it was a decision I made on my part. And that I thought fit the situation at that time. So I was as I was started as a sales lead in Journey's Kids, and then I was a co-manager in Journey's, in the adult Journey store. And then after that, I became a supervisor at First Line, the shoe store, and I was a supervisor there for about a year and a half. And it was a different environment. It wasn't as much pay as Journeys, but it was a new company. I was surrounded by a stronger team, and really welcomed me in, and I felt at home and stuff. So, and during that same time, I was in college as well too. So I went to college for about a year. I was studying architecture. I wanted to be an architecture major, and it was right after high school. I graduated. I graduated when I was 17 actually, because my birthday is in August, so I didn't turn 18 yet. So I graduated high school at 17, and 3 days after high school, I started college. I didn't wait and spend no time relaxing over the summer. I hopped right in. So I graduated Friday, packed my stuff over the weekend, got everything together. I was, on the road by Monday up to Prairie View, and after that transition and getting into that space, I was fronted with financial hardship that I couldn't conquer on my own because didn't have help from family actually, and I didn't have any outside sources to depend on. I did have government grants, but that only carried me halfway through the semester. So I had to figure out how to come up with the rest. So at work I would resell the shoes that we had in there. I would take them from the stockroom and resell them outside for a higher price, and my profit that I would take back, I would pay that towards my tuition or to pay that down. And that's what got me caught up in all of the trouble there at the job. So they terminated me. I got terminated. So I lost my job. So here I'm, going towards the end of college, no job, don't know what I'm gonna do now. I got my car, I got my apartment and stuff like that. And it's just like, where do you go? And yes, it was a decision, on my part that I made, and it was a decision that I thought, was a solution there because I didn't have no other way. But it's owned up to it, learned the mistake, and now it's what do we do next? So in that sense, when I got down in that place of life, it's like it forces you to be hungry because you no longer have a job anymore, and you don't have that dependence, on the paycheck, and it's like you just start thinking of ways to get things going. So I knew I had, my little e-commerce thing that I was doing on the side. I was reselling things online. I had, whether stuff people didn't want, stuff my friends were like, hey, Jamil, I need this. I don't want this anymore. You think you can do something with it? Yeah. I would take it, post it online. I sold it in a couple of days, make sure I advertised it real good.
Right.
And I would start doing that, on the side just to make some cash. And, I talked to my sister at the time, and he managed this warehouse on the southeast side of town. And I would work on the weekends. He paid me cash in hand, when the job was done. And while I was there, I picked up on all the business, knowledge in the business, verbiage and stuff like that. And I valued that more than actually what, he was paying me, because I later on took that knowledge and applied it to some other things in life, whether it was, work or school, and, taking that paycheck and having those little different jobs. So it forces you to think of different ways to make income for yourself. So that's how I got into insurance. I went to my aunt, and she was always busy. She's a realtor, and she has a successful career herself. And I never really, thought about, what she did. I never questioned it. I just, knew she was always busy. She had the big house and everything. She was, comfortably living, and I just never asked her, any questions and stuff like that. So when I got down to that space after I lost my job, I just went to her, and I started, seeing the work she was doing in her office, and she introduced me to the insurance, And after I got in that, I honestly I just took off in that, and it really it was a new environment because I felt free. I felt like it was a new opportunity for me to express myself and interact with people. You know, like I like doing. It was an in-person service, and I just like the face-to-face interaction. And I took all the knowledge that I learned working in retail, and I applied that to my sales experience in insurance. So started off with one company, and then I got noticed by sales representatives from another company, and I'm talking to senior marketing directors and other business owners from this company and that company. It's just like a snowball effect. Once you start that power and that your inspiration and stuff starts flowing, and you just you can't stop, and it's that hunger. It just grows and grows and grows because you don't want to be back down there where you didn't have a job, and you were worrying about rent, you're worried about car note, and you worried about tuition. You don't want to go back to that place. So that hunger originating from that point in life just keeps growing, and that's how I represent 3 major insurance companies now, along with 12 dozen other smaller ones, and I work together all around the city with those, and I just love interacting with families and helping them and giving them better financial opportunities because I really do believe in financial education. That's something that a lot of people really need to turn their eyes to if they haven't already, because it's a lot to learn out here about the world and how money works.
Yeah. So speaking of that, let's continue to build on that. So what are some aspects you're giving individuals or families around financial understanding, financial empowerment, financial literacy? Mm-hmm. What are some key aspects you're sharing with individuals around that piece?
Well, the key aspects that I try to implement in individuals is their mindset. So before anybody even begins to even start on the track of becoming financially literate or financially successful, they need to look inside themselves and their own mind at first, because you can't even begin that path if you don't have the correct mindset. Because we all think the solution is more money or higher paying job and things of that nature, but just give that to somebody that only knows how to spend. What do you think they're gonna do when they get that higher income? So it's all about changing your mindset first and learning how to control your emotions and control the way you think about things and being more open-minded and accepting to new ideas, because I see it all the time, and especially in our youth, and when I hang out with my friends and stuff, we all get into these arguments and these bickerings over little things that really don't even matter when you just sit down and communicate and understand what it is and take the emotional side out of it and just see it for the physical facts. And when you put that into the sense of actually going into the financial education, it prepares you more because you're more confident in yourself, you're more level-headed, you know what's right from wrong, and you're just ready to accept the new understanding, because the things that you're going to learn is going to really combat what you've been taught from your youth or what you heard from people and what it actually is. So I think that's really the start right there. It's your mind. You got to change your mindset.
I love it. So I got a quick question. I ask all of my guests the same question.
Yeah.
So if you had a gigantic billboard and you can put any words where millions of billions of people would see and watch your words on this billboard, what words would you have on this gigantic billboard, and tell us why?
Okay. I think the words that I would put on that billboard is a quote that I thought of myself. I was actually thinking about it the whole day. I was waiting on you to ask. I was like, oh, you gonna ask me about the quote question. I was waiting to talk about it.
Yes, sir.
The quote goes, no man shall take the path of another and expect no other than the origin of another's path. So I'm gonna break that down to you real quick.
Yeah, break it down for us.
Yeah. So the beginning of the quote, no man shall take the path of another. Now that's kind of self-explanatory. No man can follow another man's path because everybody has to find their own path, within themselves. We could study people, we could, see their methods, but at the end of the day, you got to find your own experience, your own way. So you can't just emulate somebody else's, method. So that's where no man should follow another man's path comes from. And then the next part of the quote goes, from the beginning, no man shall follow another man's path and expect no other than origin of another's path. So that states you can't follow another man's path and expect to end up where he ended up. He's going to end up right back at the beginning because you're doing something that somebody else crafted for themselves that worked out for them. It may have been successful that way, and they could project that to you and give you some advice and, kind of the ropes on how to navigate this and that. But at the end of the day, it's still your own path that you got to create for yourself and forge for yourself and your own legacy that you want to leave. So that's really the essence of that quote. It's inspiration, it's the motivation to follow your own path, and it's really the courage to actually be confident enough to even start and begin that independent journey.
Man, I love it. I love it because essentially that's what this Born to Win podcast was for. It was started throughout the pandemic. People always say, you should do a podcast. You should do a podcast. At that moment,
hey, you did it.
Yeah, at that moment, though, it was like it wasn't my time to. And you got to understand there's a time and place for everything, right? People may say, hey, you would make a great this or make a great that. And you may not be feeling that thing in your heart at the moment. One day you're going to do it.
Your passion.
Yeah, one day you'll do it. And so for me, I had to say, when is the right time? Not when everybody tell me to do it, but when is the right time for me? And it so happened that throughout the pandemic, we wasn't meeting with our young men like we normally would in person.
Separation.
So I wanted to have something to close the gap and said, let's bring in different people. We're not doing it for popularity, but we wanted to give other people a platform to share their expertise in different areas. And so I want to kind of conclude with this, and then you can kind of share out whatever you like.
Yeah,
but, if you would, from the ages of 14 up into 19, when do you turn 20?
I turned 20 in August. So
August.
3-4 months.
3 or 4 months. Wow. And so can you describe, if you can just choose one experience to kind of help shape who you are, what would that experience be? And I know it may be multiple, but if you can hone it down to one transformative experience between the age 14 to 19, what would that be?
I would say it would probably be my first experience, my first run-in with the law. Actually, that was my experience that changed my mindset and the way I view life and the way I wanted to take my path there. So and I was in middle school at the time, so I was just leaving 7th grade, going into 8th grade, and it was an altercation on the school bus that happened that day, and I got into it with the guy. And it transitioned outside the school bus, and the parents and everybody had to call the police out and ambulance, and I was taken in handcuffs, and the police questioned me and stuff like that, and we ended up going to court for it. And after the second trial, his parents just dismissed the case. I guess they felt some type of way towards me, us being in that age. We were just in middle school, 7th, 8th grade or whatever. And, I guess they didn't want to, put us through that. But just being in that experience and my track record, all throughout school, it was long. Coming from Chicago into Texas, I just wasn't getting along with everybody because I wasn't just, that accepted. It was a population that, I wasn't fitting into. And it was just a lot of things that I was used to from the city that I couldn't get adjusted to down here. And that, like I said in the beginning, it caused a lot of conflict. So when that happened and just having that experience from, middle school and high school, and it ended there because 8th grade, when I got into the next year and I ended, that experience shaped me to just, chill out and be humble and just really understand right from wrong and everything. See it for what it is. Actually analyze, sit down, discuss it. And, just like how we were talking about earlier, communication. Communication is very important. Just really breaking things down and sitting down and talking and, not yelling, keeping things at a, a level tone and just really back and forth. And that shaped me to understand how to be professional and, just take emotions away from decisions, make decisions based off of, pure logic.
Wow, man. Wow. Thank you so much. You're full of wisdom, and I can tell these experiences have shaped who you are.
Really, man. It's Just like I said, long road, man.
Yeah. So I just want to thank you for sharing freely and, sharing your story, especially again on these types of platforms, it's opportunities where we can kind of earmark this as a time in history that we talked, that we conversed, that we shared. And so young brothers like yourself, y'all inspire me because I was 19 one day, some years ago. And I remember people taking the time out to invest in me, to listen to me, to let me share.
True.
And that did a lot for me. Man. Yeah, it did a lot for me down the path. And so, I'm extending that same platform. And I'll be 41 next month. I know I don't look it because I take care of myself, right? I make sure I get the proper rest. I make sure I don't put certain things in my body. I make sure I put the right knowledge in my mind. I make sure that I'm doing the right things to take care of my wife and my kids. And that's the example that I feel I'm obligated to set for brothers like yourself. Now, given that, I do appreciate the fact that you're sharing, hey, guys, the answer is on the inside. You can discover your path. You just got to believe in yourself. And that's what I see you doing. So, man, I just want to thank you once again for taking out time to join me on the Born to Win podcast, and I'll let you leave with any last words.
I appreciate it, man. And this really is a wonderful opportunity to share my story. And I hope for everybody that's out there listening that you got inspired by, anything that I said that may have, sparked some thought in your mind and started some new opportunity for you. But really just believe in yourself, follow your passions, and everything will work out. I promise you.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining the Born to Win podcast. And remember, you're born to win in every situation in life. We'll see you on the next.
The Born to Win podcast highlights individuals excelling at high levels in their purpose and calling. This podcast is for anyone looking to get ahead in life and willing to take action and reach their full potential. Using Champ's male mentoring model of the 3 E's, education, empowerment, and exposure, it means you too are born to win.
I'm born to win. Live. The Jets from Chicago be screaming all that. You are now tuned in to the Born to Win podcast. Champion.